We have a new, very cool product. It's also a book, but it's the Deck of Many Things. And the Book of Many Things, there is kind of a reputation of like when this magic item is introduced into campaigns, sometimes it kind of...
It is the Herald of Doom.
The Herald of Doom! This is the terrible thing that happened to my character.
This is what blew my campaign up and we stopped playing.
Yeah, honestly, it's actually my favorite thing.
I've always had a great time with it.
Yeah, me too.
I can see how the chaos could really just throw things out of whack. But I think there's a whole lot of just really cool, whimsical, just amazingly fun, magical potential out of the Deck of Many Things. And so it's a shame that it's got kind of the reputation that it does, which is the main point of this product, is to make sure that, you know, DMs and players have the tools to use this super cool, storied magic item and have a great time with it and not let it ruin their play.
To that point, you have some advice, because now we not only have the Deck of Many Things, which has amazing art and everything else in there, we also have even more cards that have been introduced that they can add on to that. So what's your advice? What is your DM advice for using this Deck of Many Things?
Well, so the way the book is structured is it's broken down into chapters based on the cards. And so having this close to hand will give you some advice when you draw some of the more problematic cards to use, traditionally problematic cards, and give you some really great tools to sort of seamlessly include them into your campaign and make them part of the story rather than letting them overwhelm or derail it completely. So if we take the Rogue, for instance, when you draw the Rogue card from the Deck of Many Things, it says, someone you know or trusted becomes a villain and they're now set against you.
Yeah.
Great. What does that mean? You know?
Yeah.
So the Rogue chapter gives you 3 different possible approaches to how this villain enters the scene. They could be someone, the character who knows, who becomes an imposter, and maybe something happens to change their mind. Maybe they were a villain all along and only just now it's revealed. Maybe something has taken that character's place. So it's not actually the person that you knew and trusted. They have been doppelganged or possessed even, potentially.
Right.
So it gives the DM a nice few options to pick from to help guide them.
Because it's a little on the spot, right? Like there's sometimes like, and that's both what I do love about the Deck of Many Things is like, it will put you on the spot as a dungeon master, but having like, I can go right there and have a little bit more support.
There's a lot of improvisation and kind of thinking on your feet involved in dungeon mastering, but there are degrees of skill, and sometimes the Deck of Many Things wants you to be really, really good at it. Otherwise, things might get a little rocky.
Right.
This helps a ton by just giving you the prompts and pieces that you can grab and either use them straight as they are or use them as inspiration to, you know, get some idea of your own in a similar vein and going, oh, I could do this instead. Fine.
So you worked on some very like somewhat famous areas of this deck to like to have explainers for that kind of stuff.
Sure,
To have like nice inspiration for dungeon masters. Can you walk through that?
Yeah, sure. So Rogue being the big, you know, one of the big ones that I talked about. Not only do we give the dungeon master advice on how to introduce this new villain into the campaign, but we also give 4 sample stat blocks. Each one is appropriate for one of the 4 tiers of play. You know, you have to pick someone who the character knew, and if it's not anybody who's impressive and they're a 15th level rogue who drew the card, oh, great, the clerk that I wrangled with all throughout the campaign is now my enemy. What does that mean? Well, there's a tier 4 example of a roguish villain, who this person could now be. And the tier 4 example is actually a celestial. They're something from the outer planes who is manifested on this material world or plane or whatever setting you're playing in, and they are an agent of something greater. And you, for some reason, are opposed to whatever their design is. And they could be evil, it could be simple as that. They could be an agent of good or order, and you just happen to be set against them. And so, unfortunately, you know, their agenda is the most important to them, so you are in the way and must be dealt with.
What was the next section after the Rogue that you worked on?
Well, so one of the very, very big ones in the Deck of Many Things that people dread drawing is the Void card, where you draw the Void.
I love it.
And your character's soul is sucked out and imprisoned in an object somewhere
Yes.
Body falls comatose on the floor, and good luck.
Perfection.
Yeah. So, I mean, what do you do with that?
Yeah.
That is, we've seen some pretty prominent examples of someone drawing the void card unexpectedly and the DM having to be like, what now?
Yeah.
So this gives you an adventure to run. It presents a dungeon called the House of Cards, which is a very special place that is created when the void card is drawn. And it is where the character's soul is drawn and stored and locked away. And so now we give the dungeon master, here you go, this is what you run if someone draws the void card and their friends want to go rescue them. We have a map, we have encounters in it, we've got hazards and puzzles and all of that good stuff, and it's all very Deck of Many Things themed inside there. It presents a new monster, a creature from the far realm called a breath drinker that
Terrifying.
feeds on souls and someone's sense of self. And it uses the void card as a lure to draw more food to it.
Oh, wow, that's awesome.
Yeah. Now, one of the other tricky things about the void card is when you as a player have drawn the void, that kind of means you just get to sit out for the rest of however long it takes to resolve this issue and bring your character back, right? That's not fun a lot of the time. So we give you advice in this as to how to deal with that. And there's a couple different approaches. If you run the void card as written, the character's soul is gone, that character is out of play, you have a couple of options and we walk you through them. Here's how you can introduce a new character to allow the player to continue to be part of the fun, because that's the point, right? We're sitting around this table to play Dungeons and Dragons together and have a great time. If you just get zoofed by drawing a card and don't get to play anymore, yeah. So that's one of the options you can do is just bring in a new character for that player to portray in the rescue of their original character. That could be a good time. And then there's different ideas on how to do that, how to introduce them to the party. Does the player have another character they're excited to play? If so, bring them in. If they don't, well, you can quick and dirty it by using some NPC stat blocks and letting them play that. And here's some examples. And we point you to a few other places in the book where it's like members of this organization described in one of the other chapters could be part of this because they know about the deck and they might be willing to help. Sometimes for their own reasons, but they'll help you get your friend back.
Perfect.
So if the player is very much not okay with losing their character, if that's very upsetting, if that's not working well for them, or they just can't get into the idea of playing something different, we actually present you an alternative way to run the void card where the character's soul is drawn away and imprisoned, but they're not taken out of play immediately. They can tell something's wrong. They feel part of them is lost. And they feel this draw to get it back. And so they can actually play their character on a timer before they completely lose themselves and shut down because of the soullessness. So that adds an interesting element of stakes and clock to getting their soul back. And they can, have agency and participate in their own rescue.
Yeah, exactly. That's perfect. Yeah. Tell me about what's the next one that you also worked on? The
Fates chapter, relating to the Fates card, it has an interesting amount of player options. It starts with two backgrounds. They're the rewarded and the ruined. And the idea behind these is your character has been influenced by the Deck of Many Things in some way. That's maybe your history that started you on the path to being an adventurer. The rewarded is someone who has been touched by the beneficial fate-changing powers of the deck. And so things have just gone your way for one reason or another. And if the DM doesn't want to be like, all right, now we have to deal with what card you drew and do you start with a very rare magic item and all that fun stuff.
Yeah.
It could be because you were in the vicinity of someone who was touched by the magic of the deck and you kind of got caught in the ripples.
Yeah.
And it twisted your destiny for good or ill in some way.
Perfect.
And so the rewarded has a little bit of that extra boon of fate. And things tend to go their way a little bit. And one of the ways that manifests is they gain a bonus feat. And they can choose from lucky, magic initiate, or skilled to represent whatever little extra benefit fate has given them. And then on the flip side, there's the ruined. This is someone who is touched by the negative fate ruining powers of the Deck of Many Things.
Right.
And maybe they lost everything they owned or whatever. But the whole idea behind the ruined is this was not your end. This wasn't the end of your fate. This was the start of it. And you overcame something devastating and came through it stronger. So it's all about your fortitude to push through the adversity that these ripples of fate-changing magic threw at you. And so conversely, they can start with either the alert, tough, or skilled feats to represent whatever aspect of them has been honed and tempered
Heightened.
by their misfortune.
Yeah.
So one of the fun bag of tricks in the Fates chapter are supernatural gifts. We created a bunch of supernatural gifts inspired by the cards of the Deck of Many Things.
Right.
And so say there's a bunch of these different charms that stem from the cards. So as an example, there's the Charm of Many Things, which, and you could be infused by these by maybe you drew a card, or you were near someone who was affected by the cards, or you just had a deck in your possession for long enough without using it that some of its magic has sort of leached out into you and you can call upon it. If you get the Charm of Many Things, you can actually bestow some of that deck's magic on someone, and you can create the effect on a willing creature of one draw of the Deck of Many Things.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, you get to use this one time. One of the other things that chapters like Fates and Rogue also have is a big table of heroes of destiny with these sort of destiny traits or ideas. And it's fun because you can draw a card to get your result on this table rather than rolling dice.
Nice.
And they're sort of grouped by themes depending on what chapter they're in. And they give you and the Dungeon Master just kind of a fun prompt for what happened in your character's life, what is going to happen in your character's life, some person or event that they're connected to, and that's like just like a springboard for here. Use this to tie them into the campaign, to make interesting things happen, to give them goals to work towards or things to think about. I'm really excited to see what people do with the Heroes of Destiny tables.
So tell me about Talons.
Talons is a dangerous one for players to draw. This is one they won't soon forget because it takes away their magic items. So that'll leave a mark. The Talons chapter sort of draws on not exactly that theme of losing magic items, but on the idea of Talons themselves and some of the ways we play with that theme. And so this is sort of a bestiary chapter of new monsters that are all tied to fate or the deck itself in some way. They're all inspired by the themes playing around in this book.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah. One of them is the Talon Beast, which is a strange, vulture-ish looking creature, and they, much like the card that inspired them, can steal the magic from the things that they attack and they prey upon.
Oh, fantastic.
There is a new Fey creature called the Riffler. There were Fey spirits who manifested bodies the first time the first Deck of Many Things was shuffled, and they heard the sound of the cards riffling through the multiverse and changing the course of fate, and they just became completely entwined and obsessed in it. And so now, they're all about the deck. They search for cards, they steal cards from people, they plant decks places for unwitting folk or maybe sometimes adventurers to find them. Nobody really knows why. They're sort of serving their own agendas. They're very difficult to understand, sometimes beneficial, sometimes horrible. Little fey creature to run into.
I love it.
Yeah, they're a lot of fun.